Hey, this is Travis. So for this quick code video, I want to put together a bunch of the features and the foundational stuff that I've covered in the last couple weeks worth of quick code videos into an actual program. So far, I've only demonstrated like the feature in isolation, but this high-low game is a fun one to make. It doesn't take very long to throw together once you know what you're doing, and it does use most of what I've covered so far. So for this high-low game, which could also be the hot-cold game or whatever, we need to input a number, and the console should report back whether we're high or low. We need to use a while loop to keep the game running. We need to give a congratulatory message upon completion. We need to use a function to simplify the code, and then also, optionally, we should give a counter of how many guesses to get it right. So let's see. We need, for this one, this is going to be input stuff. For this one, it's going to be, this is going to be input, random, and typecasting. For this one, this while loop is obviously the while loop, right? Flag variable, congratulatory message upon completion. This is going to require something like an if-then statement, or an if-else, if-else in Python, and then using a function which is going to be a callable function, and there's going to be a couple different variables going, and this is going to be a plus plus or a plus equals operator. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to have our user input equals int input guess a number 1 through 0 through 100. And what this is doing right away is whatever the user types is going to be typecast into an input. We're not going to deal with data validation, trying to like deal with, oh, you typed a K and I was expecting a 97 or whatever. The other thing I need to do is I need to import random from the random library that comes installed with Python, and that will allow me to do something like draw a random number. Speaking of which, next I need to have my correct number equals, we will do rand int random dot rand int 0, and I think we want 100. I don't remember if this is exclusive. So there's a one literally a 1% chance I could get this wrong. Let's do 1 and 1. That way we know for sure 1 and 100. Okay, so when I run this program, which we'll check this here in a second, we'll do this. Actually, it's just going to keep doing it over and over again. When I run this program, just to debug it really quickly, we should get a number that is correct number, right? So let's check and make sure that this works. Want to debug? Get out of my face. Okay. I do not want that there. Okay. So the number is 9, right? And then it tells you guess a number 1 through 9. One thing that I do like to do is colon space. That way the cursor isn't sitting right on top of the last thing that I wrote. And then now I need to have, so we've got this part. User should be able to write an input. We need to get the console reporting back the high or low. Let's see. We haven't written a function yet. Optional, keep a count of how many guesses. We'll get there. So we need to have our while loop. So let's also create another variable called, I like a little bit of white space, running equals true. So now we can have while running, and what that really evaluates to, when I write while running, it really says while running equals true, right? Then I should have something going on down here, and that can be where we put this variable. Whoops. Like that. Okay, so now this loop is doing its job, right? And what that means is it'll just continuously tell me to input a number. So let's check this out in our console, make sure it runs the way we think it does. Guess a number, 5, guess a number, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. I'm stuck in an infinite loop. If you go back to my while video, then you'll know that I'm stuck in an infinite loop because there's nothing telling it to be false. So if I say user input equals int, and then I say if user input is exactly equal to correct number, running equals false. And this is not actually how I'm going to run the game. I'm just demonstrating a thing for the purpose of the video. A second. Okay. I said if oh, that is how I'm going to run the game. That's pretty close to it, actually. I don't know what the correct number is. I need to get back my print correct number so I can cheat and guess. My bad. Let's delete that. Just start completely over. Can I see the debugger? Yes, I want to start another instance. Okay, 91. So if I type in 99, if I type in 90, I keep getting it. If I type in 91, it exits the program. Okay, so I know that my general while loop is working because I've got this thing being false. So I can actually work with part of this as it is. I can print congrats, and we'll do this as an F string, so that means it's like this. Congrats, the number was correct number, and now I'm referencing this variable and pulling it directly into this particular statement, and then it will exit, right? If I leave it like this, I have a guessing game where the user can just continuously guess digits until they get there. I could even add this to a list, or I couldn't add it to a tuple. I could add it to a list of guesses and then warn them if it's in the list. That's not what I want, right? I can say elif user input is greater than correct number. So now I'm saying, okay, if my guess is greater than the correct number, print F string again, user input, whatever that number is too high, guess lower. Elif user input is lower than correct number, print, same logic, just going the other way. User input is too low, guess higher. No. Okay. So now I'm saying if the correct number is bigger than user input, guess high, guess lower. Okay, so following the general to specifics here, right? Just like before in the if, elif, else video, if my specific case is at the top, then that's the one that I think should be met. It's the most important. I put it up at the top, right? I can even say like else. This is kind of for data validation. Print not recognized or valid. Although I think Python will throw an error exception at me if I try to input a letter anyway. I could tie that into like a is type boolean. I'm not going to get into that right now. So now I've got my game loop. So let's see. The console should report back high or low. I've got my input. I've got my random. I've got my typecasting. Okay, I can get rid of that. I need to use a while loop and a flag. I've got that. I got a congratulatory message. I've got my if else. Okay, now that leaves me with my function. So function, if you recall from my functions video, starts with the def, and we'll do guess response, and we'll do that in camel case, I think is what it's called, and we will take in a guess, and we'll even specify int. Is it like that? Int guess? I don't think it's like that. I don't remember. Okay, now inside my function, I am going to put this. And I just got to figure out what's wrong with this. Unexpected indentation. Could it be? There it is. Okay. And no, that won't work because I'm not in the loop. Okay, so now all of this can go down, and I can say I want to call this function, obviously. We will say check guess equals guess response, and I'm going to pass the user input argument into it. User input. And I can do if check guess. I'm thinking as I go here. Check guess. So that will say, so this should, actually, I don't think I need any kind of variable tied to that. I could say if user input is exactly equal to correct number, which is a little bit of an echo of the thing above. Oops. Number. I can use one of my jumps, right? This will get me out of it. And then we'll have a print. Game is over, press any key. Right? So what happens here in the game logic, now I have function to simplify. It's a callable function. I'm not tying it to a variable because it's not returning anything, so I don't really see a reason to return a value with it. We've got while running. While running is true, right? Actually, we can say running equals false, and that'll accomplish the same thing as break, but this time it'll actually it'll deal directly with this variable. So now if user input is exactly equal to the correct number, then running equals false. I wonder, can I put that in my function or experiment? No, because I'd have to this might not work. Turn running. Let's give this a shot and see what happens. All right, so I'm still cheating. I've got my cheater here, right? Save it. We'll run it. Okay, so we need to go with 72. So let's guess with 71. So it says it's too low, guess higher. Okay, we'll guess with 73. It's too high, guess lower. Ah, the game is over. Okay, so by turning it into a callable function like that, I simplify the code inside my game loop, which is this, tremendously, right? So the whole logic here is I set up this running variable to be true. We get rid of the cheater variable now. User input is int, so I'm calling that right away. That's the first variable. Also, that makes it confined to the scope of that while loop, I think. And then running equals guess response. Guess response is the name of my function, which I can condense up there. And I'm passing the user input. And if the user input is exactly equal, it'll set this running variable to false, which will kill the while loop like a break statement. Otherwise, everything returns true, but it does give the player feedback, which is neat. The last optional thing I had to do here was to keep a count of how many guesses it took to get it right. So we will do another variable, but we're going to declare it outside the scope of the while loop. We'll do guess counter equals 0. So we're starting it at 0, and take the user input. We'll do the running, and let's see if we declare or if we adjust guess counter before the running is called, you'll always get one regardless of whether it's true. But if I break out of the loop before I put it here, like let's say I do guess counter, does plus plus work in Python? No. Plus equals 1. If I do it here, it'll break out of the loop and then it won't count the guess. So I need to do it right here, like this. Plus equals 1 means it'll increment it by 1. And I can say, I'll turn this into an F string. It took guess counter guesses to get it right. All right. Let's see if my game works. Game. So guess the number 1 through 100. We're going with 50. Too high. Guess lower. We'll go with 25. Too high. Okay, we'll go with 35. We will go 30. It's 30. Too high. Guess lower. 27. 26. 25. Oh, I misread 25 as too high. We'll go with 15. Too low. 20. Ah, it took me 9 guesses. Hey, look, the counter worked. Right, there it goes. All right. If I didn't have a little bit of a reading comprehension issue, that wouldn't have happened. So that's how you can write a high-low game. There are other ways to write it for sure, but I wanted to do the different things that I've covered so far in QuickCode. I've got a while loop. I've got different types of variables. I've got typecasting. I've got user input. I even showed how to import random, and we've got return values, which hasn't come up yet, but I can do more if people think that's cool. Print commands, f strings. There's a whole bunch that goes into writing a quick little game like this, and hopefully it was valuable to see how you can kind of map out an exercise and think programmatically about what do I need in order to accomplish it. By taking the time to build little projects like this, even if they're quick, goofy games that have no real material value, when you actually need the tools, you'll be familiar with what implements will fit the task that's in front of you, and you can kind of throw them all together. I haven't written a program like this in months. This was something that came out of a book that I did, that I read, the Python Crash Course. I read this in April? No, May. I read this in May. It's the end, literally the end of July as I'm recording this. It's August by the time that you're seeing it. And yet, because I've been practicing with these tools, I don't have to think a whole lot about what tools I have at my behest. I just think about what tools do I need. And that's that thinking structurally through a problem, right? Chunk it out into manageable pieces and then map it out. So that's it. I did the high-low game live. I added a feature to it that I think is neat, the guessing the guesses, or the counting the guesses. And if you like this kind of thing where I break down a simple coding problem and guide you through, well, the Quick Coding series is kind of designed for adult learners and adolescent learners who might be struggling to implement some of these basic foundational coding things. That's it. Have a good afternoon, evening, whatever. I don't know what time of the world it is where you're at, but it's cool. Quick Coding. Have fun.